Hi, this is Destine from Two Lucky Cats. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a pumpkin trivet. If you haven't done so already, you can go to our website and get the information sheet that contains a list of all the tools and materials that you need, as well as the free pattern. So I'm going to assume that you've already done it. Let's get started, and I'll show you what steps you need to take in order to complete the trivet. Now, the first thing you want to do is take your pumpkin, and when you look in your information sheet, you'll see something that some patterns that say sewing lines on it. So what I did was I made some patterns, and it tells you what's the top and what's the bottom, and you want to place it on the pumpkin. And then trace with your disappearing marker, and I always use the marker that you don't need water to get it to disappear, the kind that just disappears on its own. So trace with your disappearing marker around here. These are the lines that you're going to make to make it look like the ridges on a pumpkin. So trace the lines for this, and then you have another piece, and again you just position it the way that it goes, and then trace the lines again. Then you want to take your pumpkin and put it in the center, because you're going to sew and attach it to about the center here. Now, I used the running stitch as a stitch to attach the pumpkin onto this center piece, and I just started right here, and then I stitched down here, and let me show you on the actual pumpkin. And I went up here and then down and up and down and up, and that brings me right here to the other side of the stem. Now, once I did that, I just took my disappearing marker, and from this side I just drew a curved stem. The stitch that I use for this is called the chain stitch. I haven't used this stitch before in any of the projects, but I do have a free video that shows you just how to make the stitch. And if you can do the running stitch, you should pick the stitch up very easily, because it's very similar to the running stitch. But you can also substitute the running stitch for the chain stitch anywhere in this project. So I just went over the stem here and then continued along and stitched over the curled stem. But the other thing is, you probably want to use a thicker thread so you can see this detail better. And if you're using embroidery thread, maybe 2 or 3 stitches or 2 or 3 threads will give you enough thickness so you can see the detail. I just used some of the cotton thread that I hand dyed, and I really like it a lot. Pardon me. Now, once you've stitched this, the next step is to attach the leaves. So you just put the leaves in place here. Let me see, like this. And I just started a few stitches away from the leaf to just give the impression of a stem. And if you want, you can just draw a stitching line down here in the middle of the leaf, and I used a chain stitch down, and I did the same thing with the other leaf. So that completes the top part of the trivet. Now, the next step is to attach the center piece to the top part of the trivet. And I just take a ruler, and maybe it's about 1.75 inches around each of these edges from here to here. So that should help you center the piece in the center. So what you're going to do is attach this with a running stitch. And you can decide whether or not you want to have like a similar color thread or have it contrasting. That's up to you. But I usually just start in the center and then just go around until I meet where I started, where I come back to where I started. Once that is done, then I made this other decorative stitch in between the centerpiece and the edge of the trivet. So if you see the sewing line piece, you can see there's another piece here, and it says to put it on the fold line. Just cut that out. Just keep in mind that every time you trace a pattern, it's going to add a little bit of enlarge it just a little bit. So when you cut it out, I would try to cut inside the lines because there's just a little space in between here. And it can make it too big if you cut it a little bit larger and cut all the lines when you're cutting out the pattern. But in any case, when you finish that, place it in the center, and then use that as a pattern to draw the lines around the edge here. And again, I use the chain stitch to form the line, but you can also use the running stitch. Once that's completed, we'll move on to the last and final step. Now the final step is to put the top, and again, before you do this, I'd press it down again, is to put the top on the bottom, the top part on the bottom piece of felt. And if you're like me, somehow I can never get anything to cut everything exactly the same. So try to move it around, or if you have to, you can trim off any of the pieces now to even them out. Also, when you're doing stitching, it can pull the piece that you're stitching in just a little bit. So you can just trim it now to accommodate for those things. The last part is just to sew the two pieces together with the overcast stitch. And to do this, I just started in the center, and on my trivet I just beaded it with about a size 10 or 11 bead. I started with a bead, and then every fourth stitch I added another bead. And of course I just went around until I came back to where I started. And I didn't use beads on the rest of the decoration or the pattern because it is a trivet, and you want it the dish to be able to lay flat when you put it down on the trivet. So when you're done, the last thing you have to do is just iron it again, and that's all there is to completing it. I hope you enjoy doing this project with us. Check back on our website and see all the other free patterns that we have there. And do it often because we're always adding new free patterns. So until next time, this is Dustine from Two Lucky Cats.